Police called it a life of captivity and starvation and abuse. The man told authorities he intentionally started the fire at his home and even collapsed to the ground and wouldn't get up because he wanted the fire department to save him, believing that was his only way out.
The worst treatment of humanity that I've ever witnessed.
She put a spell on me. Yeah, she's evil, like nothing I ever seen. Looking evil, looking at me.
This is what we know about the House of Horrors in Waterbury, Connecticut, where a 32-year-old man was held captive by his stepmom. He was locked inside of one room of his large 2-story home for 20 years. Hello, my name is Holly. Welcome to the Murder She Shed. Come join me for this breaking story. Smash that subscribe button so you can find me again in this big YouTube world. Also, there is 60-mile-per-hour winds outside of my she shed today. So if you pick up a wind sound, I'm so sorry. I can't not help the winds. I mean, there's fires all around us today. It's like we had it's just crazy, the wind and the fires, and I'm just praying that this time it's not a fire that hits our house, because if you watch my channel very much, you know that a few years ago, about 3 years ago, I got hit by a tornado and had to rebuild. It was awful, and I don't want to have to do that for a fire. Plus, tornado season's coming up. We got to at least survive till tornado season, and hopefully we can get past that this year. It's rough sometimes in this, not just the YouTube world, but the real world. It's a rough, real world sometimes. Let's get right into this story. It's really heartbreaking. It all started with a fire that had been called in by 56-year-old Kimberly Sullivan.
Oh, my God. It's 2 Blake Street.
What's the address?
Please hurry. It's 2 Blake Street. There's a fire.
Okay.
Oh, my God. There's a fire. Right.
Ma'am, what's
2
on
Blake
fire?
Street. The TV, I don't know. My son, a stepson, is in his room, and I don't know. He did something with the TV. I was sleeping. I fell asleep.
See flames or smoke?
Yes. Come on, Steph. Come on.
Okay. Can you get?
Yes, we need an ambulance, please.
Okay.
Please, we need an ambulance.
Ma'am, all right. You said something's on fire, and now you need an ambulance. What's going on there?
Yes, his room. The TV in his room.
Did he get injured? Is he on fire?
Yes, he's injured. Please send the ambulance.
Ma'am, I'm going to send the ambulance. I need to know what's going on and why they're going out there. Where is he injured?
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. He's kind of passed out. He's out of it. Please.
Okay, what's your phone number, just in case we need to give you a call back?
Please.
Okay, is the fire out, ma'am?
No, it's not. Please. I'm trying to.
I understand, ma'am. I'm trying to get information on what's going on there.
Oh, my God. It's like all the power in the house is out. I don't know if it blew a fuse.
Okay, ma'am. Just get out of the house, okay?
Yes, I'm going to call my daughter.
All right.
Oh, my God.
After officers arrived, they encountered a victim known as MV1, or male victim 1 in court documents. As soon as they encountered MV1, officers knew there was something very strange going on in this home. The man was 5'9", but extremely thin. His body and face were filthy, and his teeth appeared to be rotten. His hair was dirty and matted.
Come over here. Go down the road. Come on. Come down. Come down.
Come on, down.
Who else is in the house? Who else is in here?
My stepson is in here.
How many other people? Listen,
That's it. I have 2 cats.
Everybody's out?
Yes.
But your stepson's still inside?
Yeah, he's right here.
Okay,
yes,
come out. Come down the road. Come on. Come on. It's not safe to stay here. Come on.
All right, here he is. All right, my dog is shaking.
I know. Come down here. That's true. 87 code 3 victim. Fire victim.
Okay.
Come on.
My dog is.
Right,
I know my dog.
I know. Come on.
I'm coming.
You've seen it. Got one victim right here. I need to stay over here.
He was quickly put on the ambulance in order to treat any possible burns. One officer joined him on the ambulance to ask questions and would soon learn the horrifying details. MV1 quickly admitted to starting the fire in the second floor of the house where he had been locked in one room for 20 years. He had started the fire with a lighter that he had found in a jacket pocket of his dad's. This jacket had been given to him after his biological dad had died the previous year. He had lit wadded up paper dipped in hand sanitizer in order to get this fire started. Said that he just wanted freedom because his stepmother and father had held him inside that room since he was 11 years old. He was willing to sacrifice burning up in the fire in order to possibly get freedom, and he almost did die, if not from the fire. Then eventually, he would have died from starvation. After he was brought to the hospital, he was listed as critical condition due to inhaling a lot of smoke. Meanwhile, back at the House of Horrors, his stepmom was being questioned by officers. Kimberly stated to a detective that she didn't know what happened and that she just woke up to the smoke and she went to MV1's room. She stated when she got to his room, she saw a large amount of fire in his doorway. She also said that she guessed he ran through the fire because he did end up outside of the room. The detective asked her if MV1 had been diagnosed with any mental conditions, and Kimberly stated that he has had a lot of problems, but he hasn't been diagnosed with any conditions because MV1's father was against using doctors. She stated that she has brought MV1 to a psychiatrist a few times as he had mentioned he was going to hurt himself. The detective asked Kimberly if MV1 was locked inside his room, and she stated that his door is not locked and that he has free reign of the house. The detective knew this could be an untrue statement, as he had seen a slide lock on the outside, which could be used to lock a door shut from the outside. When the detective asked Kimberly about the lock, she refused to continue talking to the police and then asked for a lawyer. You know, I would too. If I was caught with a lock on my door and someone that looked like him inside my house. That's horrifying. And you will hear his conditions. His condition was awful. The way he was found was just awful. A few days later, after MV1 had started to recover, the police interviewed him. He spoke to officers for 3 long hours about his 20-year captivity, neglect, and starvation. He said his earliest memories started at the age of 3. The family was living at a different address at the time, and he recalled being hungry, which led him to sneak out of his room at night to get some food and drinks. He stated that when the wrappings to the food he ate were eventually discovered, he began to be locked into his room at that point. He stated that at that time it was only during the evening hours, though. He recalled drinking water from the toilet at the time due to the fact he was only getting about 2 cups of water per day. MV then recalled how the family had moved to the home he is currently at before preschool. MV1 stated that when he was in the 4th grade, he was permanently pulled out of school due to the fact the school he was attending, well, they contacted the Department of Children and Family Services based on what he was doing in school. MV1 stated that by this time in his life, he was always hungry. So when he was at school, he would ask others for their food or steal others' food and sometimes eat food out of the garbage even. Because of this, DCF showed up at his home 2 times. Although I've heard that DCF was called 20 times to his home. So I'm not sure if they showed up more than that, but it doesn't say that they did. And he was made to say that he was fine. His family said, you have to say you're fine. So that's what he said. He was too scared not to say that he was okay. After the second DCF visit, he was pulled from school by Kimberly. MV stated that he was provided worksheets for a short period of time, but the skill level never advanced and no one was teaching him anything. MV stated that he always had a lock on the outside of his door. It evolved from a chain lock to a padlock and eventually a slide bolt lock. Not only did he demonstrate to the detectives how it operated, but the lock was also observed from photos obtained from the search and seizure warrants executed at the residence. MV1 added that when he first moved to this house of horrors, he was in an actual bedroom. He was locked in, but he's in a bedroom. But then he was moved to a smaller room. This area was observed during the execution of the search warrant and can be described as like a back storage space on the second floor of the residence. MV stated he was only there for a short period of time, eventually being moved to an even smaller room. This is where he has been since the age of 12. This space that MV was locked in was a back storage space that measured approximately 8 feet by 9 feet. The space also had an angled ceiling, making the space that much smaller, and we know he was 5 feet 9 inches tall. We all know that must have been hard, those slanted ceilings and him being that tall. Can't imagine a part of that room he had to actually duck. It's heartbreaking. MV1 stated that the space had no heat in the winter and no air conditioning in the summer. MV also stated that once he was pulled from school, his weekday routine and captivity became brutally consistent for the rest of his life. MV1 stated that he would typically go to sleep around 7:30 p.m., depending on what season it was. He stated that he would wake up around 3 a.m. to 4:30 and would be awake for the rest of the whole day and night, noting that he did not sleep well. He was let out of his room for a limited time in the morning, around 8 a.m. He stated that he was tasked to complete several chores in the house, which may take him anywhere between 15 minutes to 2 hours, depending what he was made to do. From there, typically late in the morning, he was brought back to his room, where he was locked there for the remainder of the day and through the overnight hours until it was time to get out and do chores again the following day. When asked how often this routine was, he stated nearly every day. MV1 stated that on occasion he was let out in the early evening hours, just briefly. MV1 stated that there was times when he would be locked in his room for a whole day at a time, equating to 24 hours straight. MV1 added that on the weekends, he would be let out of his room for longer periods of time by his father. That's when his father was alive. V1 stated that while Kimberly took his 2 half-sisters to events and to see their friends, his father would allow him to come out and watch TV with him. He stated that there were also times when his father would let him go outside with him to work in the yard. And V1 added that the last time he left the property was when he was approximately 14 or 15 years old, stating that he went out with his father to dump yard waste. When discussing his father dying, he stated that his captivity and restraint got much worse when it's just a stepmom. V1 stated that got to the point where the only time he would ever be out of the house once his father died was to let the family dog out in the back of the property, stating that it was only about 1 minute a day. Essentially, MV1 was locked in his room between 22 to 24 hours a day. Stated this provided 2 sandwiches a day. They were typically deli meats, peanut butter, and occasionally tuna or egg salad. MV1 describes his food becoming less and less over time. When asked if he was hungry every day, he stated all day, every day, my entire life. Along with the limited food supply, he stated he had the equivalent of about 2 small bottles of water per day. When the detective asked MV1 why he never spoke with anyone about his experience, he stated that he wanted to, but there was the constant threat of longer lockdowns and further diminishment of food. MV1 describes a life of being mentally conditioned by his stepmom. He stated that the threat was that he would not see the light of day if he told anyone. And knowing that he had little time out of his room to that point, it was not something he could risk. MV1 also stated that he once discovered a while cleaning. This added to his fears of being hurt. He discussed how much of a normal day consisted of him counting cars as he looked out his window. That's so sad. I actually seen an article where one neighbor did see him looking out the window once and he waved at her. She said he quickly disappeared and she didn't see him again. Everyone stated they thought of breaking the window, later learning that there was a storm window that could not be removed. But MV1 stated that Kimberly would tell him under pain of death no one was to see him. MV1 stated that throughout the years, Kimberly would constantly lead him to believe that she was going to start letting him out of that locked room. At least that gave him some hope. She needed to be able to trust him first, she said, but she never let him out. She never kept her promise and left the door unlocked and just let him come and go as he wanted. Emmy said when he was a young child and he was only being locked in the room during the overnight hours, he had a training potty chair. Once he reached his teen years, he used bottles and newspapers were left in his room to use to dispose of his waste. Everyone described how after he urinated into a bottle, he would have to then funnel it into a tube he created with a series of straws and then guide those straws through a hole in his window to empty it. V1 continued by describing how he defecated. He stated that he placed newspapers on the ground and then he'd squat over them to relieve himself. He would then roll these newspapers up, tie it with a string he unraveled from old t-shirts, and eventually brought it out to the kitchen garage when he was let out to do his chores. He also stated he had not had a bath in a year or two and would save a small amount of his drinking water to wipe down, but he didn't have any soap. He had just used that small amount of water to get a little bit of the dirt off him. He would occasionally cut his own hair when it would become really, really matted. Besides watching TV with his father occasionally, he had no other television viewing. He did not have one in his room. MV1 recalled a time where briefly about 15 years ago he had a small black and white television, but it became unusable due to the advancement in technology. MV stated that his only real connection to the outside world was a radio that was kept outside his bedroom. He described listening to local radio stations. Through listening to about 2 or 3 stations, he was able to stay semi-current in world issues. He was able to learn about and follow NASCAR and basketball. Along with the calendar, MV1 stated that he utilized the radio to keep track of time and years. He had no education above the 4th grade. He stated that he was provided approximately 3 to 4 books. He stated that he also had a dictionary. So basically, the little education he got was from himself. His sisters were allowed friends, but the sisters could not have their friends over because then their little secret would be let out. I am hearing through the grapevine that his twin half-sisters are now 28 years old. And at one point, one of these sisters worked at DCF. I hope this is not true because that'd be horrifying for any child put under her care if she thought her brother being held in captivity is okay. What could she do to these children? Was everything okay with them? Because he was treated so terribly. How could she be a judge of what others was doing in their house? One of those sisters now currently works at an animal hospital for little animals. And then the other one currently works at some kind of community with older people. Also, I don't think she should be working with older people. Little kids, animal, older people, they're working with all the people that need extra help and extra love. These people that couldn't even give their own brother the love he needed and help their mother neglect him, are working with the most needy of people and animals. It's just crazy. And the grandmother also knew about what's going on, but she is currently deceased. When he was asked about physical, he stated that there was no sex, and he recalled only one instance where he is physically. Stated that around 2005, being home alone, he cut out a piece of wood paneling out the door that he was locked behind. Stated that he was able to sneak out and make his way to the rest of the house where he found some food and ate it because he is so hungry. When Kimberly discovered he had made his way out of the room, she went up to him and slapped him right in the face. From that point on, not only was his door locked, but plywood was secured on both sides of the door so he could not get through the door again. This door was observed in the residence when the search warrants were executed, and there was, in fact, plywood on each side of that door. When asked about medical care, MV1 stated that he had not been to a doctor since he was a child. He stated that the only medicine he was ever given was an aspirin occasionally. He added that he had never been to a dentist, along with seeing MV1's body being absolutely emaciated. It was clear that MV had severe tooth decay. He stated that when he ate, pieces of his teeth would break off. When he is asked about the day he set the fire, he describes it as being a normal day, doing chores in the morning, but this day he was actually allowed to clean off Kimberly's vehicle. Like every other day, he was given 2 sandwiches and a snack and sent back to his room, where he was then locked in until 7 p.m. that night. He states that he was let out to replace a bulb on a small Christmas tree that was on a breakfast bar at that point. When he could not complete the task, he was sent back to the room and locked in. Around 8 p.m., MV1 heard his stepmom's bedroom door close, and he thought, same old, same old. He added that he doesn't remember what time, but he did remember making the choice to set this fire, noting that there wasn't a plan to do so earlier in the day, but he decided he wanted to. He stated that he also knew that when he set the fire, he would have to let it get to a point where Kimberly was not able to put it out alone, and that the fire department would have to be called in. MV added that once the fire got going good, he started to stomp and yell for help. Everyone stated that Kimberly yelled to him, asking what he wanted, and he told her fire. When she opened the door, she asked what he did, and he told her that the radio had actually malfunctioned. He states that at this point, he was out of it and had collapsed at the top of the stairs. He stated that Kimberly made him get up and go to the downstairs bathroom to wash his face, stating that she did not want the fireman to see him in the condition that he was. Everyone remembers that the fire department arrived. His sister and boyfriend had arrived as well. He stated that he knew this because he could hear his mom, stepmom, yelling to them to get a screwdriver, to get the locks off those doors. Everyone concluded by stating that he fell to the ground again, with Kimberly yelling at him to get up. He stated that he stayed on the ground and he purposely didn't get up so that the fire department would be forced to get him. He had to leave. He knew that he was dying and he had to get out of there or he would die. MV's medical records show that MV appears younger than his age, has something known as wasting syndrome, often seen in dying cancer patients. This is where your muscles start to deteriorate due to severe weight loss. He had a BMI of 11 and only weighed 69 pounds or 31.2 kilograms. A BMI under 13 is considered life-threatening, and his was 11. He was also diagnosed with depression and PTSD. Imagine that. And imagine why. MV's uncle was interviewed by police. His uncle stated that he had not seen MV1 since 2004 or 5. He remembered going to the family home for Christmas Eve for a few years in a row until the family pushed him and his wife away. He remembered that MV1 was always skinny, meek, and mild-mannered. The uncle recalled trying to ask MV1 questions, but Kimberly interfered. His uncle stated that he attempted to reach out over time, but there was no response. Concerned for MV1, he stated that about 10 years ago, he spoke with a private investigator who suggested going to vital statistics to look for a death certificate. In regards to MV1's condition, he stated that when he visited MV1 in the hospital after the fire, that he was shocked because he looked like a Holocaust victim. Kimberly was able to bond out by posting $300,000 bail after appearing in the Waterbury Superior Court. Here's an interview of his principal talking about what he witnessed when MV attended school.
The student in question was a kindergartner, and it was my first year as principal of Barnard Elementary School. And I just remember seeing this kid. He was just so tiny, much smaller than usual 5-year-olds, maybe a quarter of the size. I mean, it's absolutely tiny, and he had no color to his face, and he looked emaciated. He looked like he wasn't eating at all. And as time went on, and again, you're a new principal, so you're kind of getting the ropes of school. I would walk in the morning. Now, Barnard was an old elementary school built in 1898. It's used for adult ed now. And they had, the kids would come in the morning, and there was an old bathroom, boys' room downstairs, and they had the old type ceramic urinals, which were probably about 4 feet high, bigger than him. And I would walk in there in the morning, and he would be flushing the toilet, drinking the water coming out of the urinal as it's raining. I'm going, oh man, there's something wrong with this. And he would tell me he's thirsty. Then I'm thinking, well, maybe he's thirsty. He can't reach the fountain because the water fountain was too high. I don't know if I called the mother at that particular day, but then I would find him in the bathroom almost every morning, opening up his little lunch. He had a plastic lunchbox that kids use, and it was filthy, disgusting, with just old food and crust and everything else on it. And he would open it up. This is 8 o'clock in the morning, and he starts shoving all his lunch into his mouth. What the heck you doing? Oh, I'm hungry. I said, didn't you have breakfast? No. What's going on here? And at this point, I would call his mother, and I'd say, the kid's hungry. He's eating his food in the bathroom, this and that. Didn't get anywhere. He stopped doing that, okay? And the year progresses, the teachers are all concerned. His kindergarten teachers, what's going on? He's always hungry, blah, blah, blah. As he gets into first grade, the next year, when you go to lunch, we're getting reports from other kids that he's stealing their lunch. He's literally taking it while they're eating and eating their lunch. Now you're talking 6-year-olds now. Kids do stuff like that. So it's not that uncommon, but he was doing it constantly. So again, like Mr. Principal, I called the mother just to kind of say, hey, what's going on, this and that. Oh, I'll take care of it, no, this and that. He's eating, there should be no problem. And looking back, he probably got punished when he went home. So what I did was probably the worst possible thing for the kid. He wouldn't be stealing the food as much, but he was constantly hungry. These teachers, he had the teachers up to 4th grade. They were constantly bringing food in for the kid. And he was just ravenous, devouring it all the time. He'd tell us stories of, he had 2 biological sisters to the mother. And the mother would order pizza, and he wouldn't get any of the pizza. And this kind of stuff kind of broke your heart. And over the years, from kindergarten to 4th grade, between myself, the school nurse, the parent liaison, the teachers, called DCF numerous times. If I'm saying 20, that's probably being conservative. And whether they investigate, you do the paperwork, you do the phone call, they do the investigation, they come back, we went to the house, and nothing, this and that. You really weren't getting anywhere going through that agency. After 4th grade, he never went to 5th grade. And I'm not quite sure if he finished his 4th grade at Barnard School, but I definitely know he didn't show up for 5th grade. It was a small neighborhood school. It was maybe 250 kids. You know all the kids, you know the neighborhood, this and that. Yeah. And so I would start asking the kids, hey, you see this and that? And I knew the kids who lived right next door. And I would ask them, and they would tell me, oh yeah, we see him. He's in the window of the house waving out the window. I said, well, does he ever come out and play? Do you ever see him in the yard? No, we never see him in the yard. He never plays. He never comes out. I said, well, how long is he in the window for? Well, he's in the window for a little while, and then we see him the next day or the next day. So obviously, I'm kind of concerned about that. I called the police at least 2 or 3 times, could be more, for wellness checks. And I gave statements in terms of, there's something wrong. This kid, he's not coming to school. There's no reports of him going to school. Kids see him in the window. What's going on? I don't remember the police literally ever coming to the school to follow up on it, but I remember them saying, yeah, they went to the house, they saw the kid, they talked to the mother, everything's fine. And I would respond by saying, how is everything fine? He's not going to school. I mean, I specifically remember the police telling me, well, the mother said she's enrolling him in Wolcott schools. And I remember actually contacting Wolcott schools. There's only 2 elementary schools there, explaining who I was. We're looking for this kid. What our concerns was, there was no record of him going to Wolcott school. The 2 sisters went to I want to say St. Margaret's School, which is up off Highland Avenue, somewhere up there. I don't know if it's still in business, whatever. The twin sisters went there. So we never had any communication with the two sisters, but they obviously went to a private parochial school, which was a pretty nice school in Waterbury, and he was at the public school. So we basically, after 4th grade, we lost the contact, other than me calling, and I think myself with the parent liaison claims we went to the house when he was in 5th grade. It's more than likely we did, and I don't think anybody ever answered the door. I remember walking around the house looking. And even farther past, that had to be 2004, 2005. And after that, I was telling you about the after-school programs I do. Yeah. One of the programs at the time I was doing was at Chase Park House, which is on right on the street, the main street going on Sunnyside Avenue. And we'd finish the programs at Chase Park House, and I would just drive across the street, and I would look to see if I could see. I said, that's the house. I would tell my wife the story. I said, that's where he lived. I don't know where this kid is, but I'm going to tell you right now, we're going to see this story on Dateline sometime, without question. And that was not just my thought. Right. It was everyone in the school who had any kind of contact with the school at all. It was inevitable that this kid, you can't just drop a 10-year-old off the face of the earth and he never shows up again. And it's like, no one cared. No one cared enough to really follow up on it, other than me or somebody going up there and busting the door and pulling the kid out by his ear and saying, what the heck's going on here? Which I came to the point of wanting to do that sometimes and didn't, obviously. But everyone really was concerned with this child since he was 5 years old. You knew something was wrong. It was grossly wrong.
Also found Kimberly's old Facebook page. It looks like nothing current was put in there, but is under Kimber Soul is what it's under. If you want to go to her old Facebook page and look, just a lot of pictures of herself and see any pictures of any of her children. I do know what her daughters look like, because if you want to learn more about what her daughters look like and their actual names, you can find that all over Reddit, actually. If you want to go on there and look. I'm not going to say the daughters' names, but it's easy to access that information on Reddit. Also, there has been a GoFundMe started for this young man to rebuild his life, do all the healing and counseling that he needs done. I mean, really, he knows nothing about any advanced technology. He knows nothing about the outside world. He's been locked away for years and years. What he knows is when he was a kid. I can't imagine the mental shock he's going to get and all the things he needs to learn. It's all going to be so confusing for him. He's just got a hard future. And I do pray for this young man. I hope he can overcome all he has to overcome, which is a lot. And I pray that he gets justice. He deserves justice. All right, I love you guys, and I'm not going to go get Simon and Max today because I have to fight wind to do so, and I think they're in the house, so I'm just going to tell you bye without them today. I'm so sorry. I just wanted to do this case real quickly since it was a new case and get it out to you. All right, love y'all. See y'all in a few days. Bye.
Do you love the subscribers at the Murder She Shed? Do you want them to come here weekly? Okay, maybe they will.
She put a spell on me, some kind of hex, some kind of voodoo, I was gonna be next. I got up and walked over to her. She looked at me, she didn't say a word, but she's evil as she can.